Hello Vlogalogue. I had a lot more planned for this video, but it's now rather late, so I'm just going to ad hoc it somewhat, and you'll have to excuse the noise and the bad lighting. I've enjoyed the conversation this week. I think that everybody's kind of picked their area and just talked about it, rather than anybody like walling up against each other, which has been interesting, because I mean Kevin, just moaned like an old man, and Luke talked about how the effect that it could have on the family, and very specifically his family, which I enjoyed. But for me, when you ask a question about basic income and what people would do with it, it becomes more a conversation about unemployment, at least from a policy standpoint. And I mean, unemployment, whether people want to acknowledge it or not, I mean, states and societies have been dealing with high levels of unemployment forever. Everyone pretends that there seems to be these cyclical patterns in unemployment, and there just isn't. Because, okay, without giving you a lesson in statistical analysis and some social policy, which I don't want to teach, and you probably don't want to learn, and because we're meant to be having a conversation about, when the robots take over, not about nonsense. Majority of people in developed, economically and socially speaking, nations are unemployed everywhere, and nobody ever seems to bring this up in a discussion about unemployment and work. I mean, we have groups in society that are chronically unemployed. Without getting into various different types of unemployment, because then we'll be talking about like structural unemployment and cyclical unemployment and classical and functional and regional and seasonal and voluntary and other ones that I'm sure I've missed. I mean, really, the conversation that we want to have is just about people not working, and that the reason doesn't really matter. It's just about people not working. So that's the version of unemployment we're going to use. But when people think about that, they tend to think about like able-bodied 16 to 65-year-olds, your main national workforce, and within them, I don't know, 5 to 12% are unemployed at any one time throughout any developed nation's history, and sometimes even more. But we're talking about the good times here, not like economic depressions or a whole other conversation. I think I'm getting off the point. What about children? They're unemployed, they're shit at working, they can't do the work, they're just fucking awful. And don't even get me started on, like, pensioners, bunch of scrounging twats with their pensions. Ugh. Young people, as in really young people, as in people that don't work, and old people, as in people who have retired, make up vastly more than the majority of most developed populations. So, when people have a discussion about how unemployment will affect societies, they kind of cease to acknowledge that for the majority of history, and particularly now, we've always had a majority of people being unemployed, and it's never been a problem in terms of us functioning society before. I mean, historically speaking, women did not have jobs. I mean, arguably, they didn't have economically participatory jobs. So, are we meant to just ignore the fact that apparently half of the entire population didn't have a job for a very, very long period of history? No, because that would be silly. And then to get back to old people and young people, multi-billion-pound industries have grown up around keeping young people and old people entertained and doing stuff and healthy and having a good time, even though, from an input perspective in an economy, they're shit. They don't work. But I think when you talk about basic income and how it's gonna revolutionize society, I don't believe it is if it was introduced. I mean, we don't get angry at children for not working, and we don't get angry at old people for not working. If anything, like, my grandparents are the coolest thing ever. Since they've retired, my nan is now a writer and my granddad flies planes. Like, what? Those aren't careers, but it makes them economic participants and is just good, I would argue. I guess to focus directly on the question of basic income, if tomorrow, like, my country just decided that basic income would be a thing, I wouldn't stop working, personally. I mean, I probably wouldn't work as much as I do now, but I wouldn't stop working, I mean, I like my work, I like working, I like the feeling of like working and knowing that you've done something and that's what you did today and congratulations. But you know who probably would stop working? People who hate their jobs. I mean, if less people have to work in shitty industries that make them miserable, how is that nothing but a plus, as far as I'm concerned? Because if there are less people in the world hating the majority of moments in their life, I think that's an improvement. Maybe. You could disagree, but you'd be weird. Quite frank, and then, okay, right, there's this argument that I think, well, Kevin touched on it, and Luke, I think, wanted to, and kinda did. But quite frankly, if you spend 90% of the time that you've gained because a machine took over your job, or because you've been given basic income and you don't want to do your job anymore, and all, you know, you spend it watching Netflix, I'm cool with that. I don't care. You go for it. It's your life. 'Cause one, who the fuck am I to judge? And two, like, a world where we can finally stop pretending that work is what must define us as both, you know, an individual and a collective is a far better world than the one we live in now. Hopefully our robot overlords will stop fucking up the planet as much as we do as well. Wow, that was a coherent thought process, Niall. Well done. That was a great Vlogalogue video. 10 out of 10.